Let me ask you a question. What if everything you see, everything you touch, is an illusion? Not in a spooky way, but a useful one, something designed by millions of years of evolution. Today, we are diving deep into an idea that's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about reality itself.
All right, let's just jump right in. Look around the room you're in right now. I mean it. The screen you're looking at, the chair you're sitting on, it all feels so solid, so real, doesn't it? But what if it's not? What if all of that is just a really, really good user interface, hiding a reality that's way more complex and, frankly, a whole lot weirder?
The best way to think about this is with your computer desktop. You see that little blue icon for a file, right? You can click it, drag it, drop it in the trash. It's easy. It's intuitive. But is that file actually a little blue rectangle living inside your computer? No way. The reality is this mind-boggling mess of circuits, voltages, and code. The icon just hides all that complexity so you can actually get work done. So, what if our reality works the exact same way? That desktop analogy is the perfect way to get into our first big idea, this concept of reality as an interface. This is where we bring in cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman and his interface theory of perception, which basically argues that our senses did not evolve to show us the truth. They evolved to keep us from dying. See, we have this idea that evolution gave us senses that are like a window, and over time that window gets clearer and clearer, showing us reality more accurately. Hoffman's theory says, nope, it's the total opposite. Evolution couldn't care less about truth. It only cares about fitness, about survival. So it didn't give us a window, it gave us a virtual reality headset, one that simplifies the world into useful little icons. A snake isn't some objective truth, it's a survival icon that basically screams, danger, stay away. Trying to process the raw, true data of reality would just be too slow. We'd get eaten. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a really cool philosophical game, right? But this is where things get truly wild. Because it turns out, physicists are starting to arrive at the exact same conclusion, but from a totally different direction. And it's leading them to this shocking idea that space-time itself is doomed. And don't just take my word for it. Listen to Nima Arkhani Hamed. He's one of the top physicists working today. He's saying that the very container of our universe, the 3D stage where everything seems to happen, it's not fundamental. It's something that emerges from something deeper. It's part of the user interface, not the actual hardware of the cosmos. This, of course, raises a huge question. If space and time aren't the bedrock of reality, if they're just features of our human-specific headset, then what is? What is the fundamental operating system that our interface is running on top of? So, with space-time kind of crumbling as a fundamental idea, the hunt is on for what's really underneath it all. And this is where the theory takes its most radical turn, proposing an answer that flips our entire worldview completely on its head. Consciousness is fundamental. We've had it backwards this whole time. We thought a physical universe somehow created consciousness. This idea says no. Consciousness creates the physical universe that we experience. So, if you're going to build a universe from scratch without physical stuff, you need a new building block. Forget atoms, forget strings. The proposal here is for something called a conscious agent. And what is it? Well, you can forget about things like mass or charge or spin. A conscious agent is defined only by what it can do, have experiences, and make choices based on them. And it's actually a beautifully simple little loop. A conscious agent does three things. First, it perceives. It has some kind of experience. Second, it decides. It makes a choice based on that experience. And third, it acts on that choice. That's it. That's the proposed engine of reality. But hold on. If reality is just made up of all these individual points of view, these agents, how do we end up with a stable, shared world? How do you and I both agree that a table is a table? Well, that's where the idea of a massive network comes into play. The best analogy is to think of reality as a giant cosmic social network. I'm serious. Each conscious agent, you, me, everything, is like a user on this network. And the things we call physical objects, that table, the moon, they aren't solid things that exist on their own. They're more like the shared data, the posts, the likes, the messages that are being exchanged between all of us users. And space-time, that's just the graphical user interface we all use to navigate this giant internet of minds. Okay, let's all take a deep breath. My mind is sufficiently blown.
But let's try to bring this back down to earth. What does all of this actually mean for us in our day-to-day lives? Why does exploring such a wild idea even matter?
So let's boil it all down. What are the key takeaways here? First, the physical world you see is your personalized headset. It is perfectly tailored for your survival, not for showing you the truth. Second, every object you interact with is just a simple icon, representing a much, much more complex reality of interacting conscious experiences. That coffee cup isn't just a cup, it's a gateway. And, finally, the big one, consciousness isn't some weird accident that just happened in the universe. It is the foundation of the universe. It's the one thing that is truly real.
And all this leaves us with one final, really provocative thought to chew on. If our perceived reality is just a user interface generated by this massive network of conscious agents, what happens when we learn to look beyond the headset? If the world is truly a construct of mind, what are the limits of what's actually possible? That's something to think about.